Welcome everyone, White Cloud, an introduction of cloud accounting and QuickBooks. My name is Hector Garcia. I'm a certified public accountant based out of Florida in the United States. I have a small firm with about 10 employees. We do QuickBooks consulting and traditional accounting services. I'm also a certified advanced pro advisor and a YouTuber. Check out my channel that has tons of videos about accounting, tax, QuickBooks, and many other topics. Now, I'm a long-term user of QuickBooks Desktop and QuickBooks Online, and I've trained both type of users, the end users, the accountants in desktop and online all over the world. So I'm very excited to talk to you about QuickBooks Online. For the table of contents, we're first going to talk about why cloud and why QuickBooks. Then we're going to briefly talk about the requirements and the things you have to start thinking about when creating a QuickBooks Online international account and choosing the language that you want that QuickBooks account to be in. We're going to talk about multi-currency support and the home currency, a very common concept to deal with in an international context. Then we're going to talk about importing your customers and your suppliers into your brand new QuickBooks Online account so you can start interacting with those customers and those suppliers that you normally do business with. Now, if you're a brand new business and you don't have those yet, you don't have to import them, but many people that have active businesses, they want to bring the data in so they start working with familiar information. Then we're going to talk about customizing the forms, customizing the invoice. So we know exactly what the invoice looks like when we email it to our customer. Then we're going to move on to actually creating an invoice and emailing it so you can see exactly what that process looks like. This is by far the most common concept, the most common topic that QuickBooks users use. Then we're going to talk about tracking expenses. So we can track expenses being paid out of the bank, being paid out of credit cards, or accounts payable, which are future expenses that you record now and pay in the future. Then we're going to move on to reports and kind of show you the reports that show the results of all the activities we'll be using in this session. And lastly, we'll talk about the mobile app. So being able to do a lot of the things that we're doing from the computer uh, in your phone, in your smartphone. So using the smartphone could also be a really great complement to your QuickBooks Online experience. So I'll start by saying QuickBooks Online is the future of accounting. It, enable, it enables businesses to integrate with multiple cloud-enabled systems into a single source of truth. We believe that QuickBooks Online will be the single source of truth with all your financial and transaction information where multiple systems can feed into, and you ultimately trust information that's in QuickBooks Online. You run your business from QuickBooks Online and you make major and important business decisions from the reports that QuickBooks Online is able to create. Now, why cloud as opposed to desktop-based traditional accounting systems? Well, number one, cloud-based systems are going to be always on and always available. It's not going to require you to have access to a particular server or network. It's on the cloud. It's freed up. And anyone that has access to it, that has user authorized access, secure access, a user ID and a password, should be able to connect to it or access it at any point in time from anywhere in the world from any type of device. So that concept of always being on and available, it's probably what makes cloud the best destination for accounting software. The second big deal about having cloud-based software is being able to easily integrate with other systems. So you can have other operating systems that might not be accounting. Maybe it's an operating system where you manage or schedule your employees, or an operating system where you run payroll, or an operating system where you manage with permissions, which vendors are going to get paid when, and that sort of thing. So there could be other apps that you're using to manage transactions. It's not necessarily QuickBooks, but they are able to integrate via the API. And once you integrate it, it's really easy. It sort of happens behind the scenes. Another great valuable component of having a cloud-based system would be having a direct bank connection or direct bank connectivity. So being able to connect your financial institutions to download those transactions immediately into your accounting system so you can start recording them or matching them with your existing transactions, it's going to really, really speed up your process and make you more efficient. Now, if you have multiple users, cloud-based systems are great because the other users can log in at any time. They can log in concurrently and most likely not affect any of the other users while they're working at the same time. Another great thing about cloud in general is that it works in multiple platforms: Macs, PCs, smartphone, tablets. Maybe not the truth for every cloud-based accounting system out there, but definitely true for QuickBooks Online. Then, as we talked about earlier, no need to make big investments into servers, networks, and workstations to have multiple people collaborating. You just have one QuickBooks Online subscription that has multiple users created, and they can securely access it and work simultaneously. And lastly, because it's already on the cloud, it's already secure, there's no need for backup. So that saves that routine process that many QuickBooks Desktop or desktop-based accounting systems have, which is creating these routine backups every week or every month, depending on how much data you manage. Now, why QuickBooks specifically? Why do we recommend QuickBooks Online for your cloud-based accounting software? Well, number one, QuickBooks is a market leader, very strong brand in the US, particularly US, Canada, UK, Australia, the big markets, but it's a market leader through the world. It has presence in multiple global markets. And if you're not in one of the major markets, there is an international version of QuickBooks Online that it's catch-all and it works from any country, any type of business that's out there. So this international version of QuickBooks Online is the one that we're going to be using for the example. Now, the ease of use. If you try any other traditional desktop-based accounting software versus QuickBooks Online, you will quickly notice how easy and how intuitive it is. So for small businesses or people getting started in this world, QuickBooks Online is a great stepping stone into cloud accounting. Now, QuickBooks has over 5 million users worldwide as of the date of this presentation. So there's tons of support. You can check out all the videos available in YouTube, in my channel, or in other channels, even in the QuickBooks channel. Tons of videos available. So the more users, the more support in general you're going to be able to find. Now, QuickBooks Online has a really, really rich and powerful set of features. And based on everything that it gives you, I strongly believe is affordable, very affordable compared to other options that are out there. So those are the reasons why I think QuickBooks Online should be your choice for cloud accounting. Now, let's talk about creating a new QuickBooks Online account in the International Edition. The very first thing you're going to get is the choice to decide which version you're going to use. So the International Edition has 3 versions. We have the Simple Start, Essentials, and Plus. A lot of small businesses that are getting started, they start with Simple Start. Simple Start is perfect if you just want to do invoicing and track expenses, and you're only going to have one user. But as your business grows, QuickBooks Online will grow with you, and you can upgrade to QuickBooks Online Essentials. Essentials gives you multi-currency support. So if you have multiple bank accounts in different countries and different currencies, you can track them all in QuickBooks, and QuickBooks will automatically recalculate all of the transactions and all the balances from those foreign accounts into your home currency. So you have one unified report, all translated or converted to the current value, and this happens in a daily basis, to your home currency. Essentials also gives you the ability to have multiple users, so you can have up to 3 users working in QuickBooks Online simultaneously, and the ability to track accounts payable. These are bills that you're going to recognize that you owe today, but you're going to pay them in the future. Now, as your business grows some more and you move to Plus, Plus gives you more than 3 users. It gives you the ability to track dimensions such as classes and locations. So you can track different departments or segments inside of your company as if they were their own sort of mini companies, and you can run their own separate isolated reports. With Plus, you can also track inventory. So if you buy products that you hold or stock and sell in the future, you're going to be able to do that with Plus. You can also do budget. So you can create a budget and compare your actual numbers versus your budgets with that plus edition. And all the editions have tax support. So whatever value added tax, sales tax, GST, whatever type of tax your country has, you'll be able to configure those taxes in QuickBooks Online so it can calculate every time you purchase an item with tax or sell an item with tax, and it calculates the balance of that tax so you have support for submitting those tax forms to your government. Now, the next thing you're going to see when you select the version or while you select the version is it's going to ask you which country is this for. So if you're not in the major markets like US, Canada, UK, Australia, and there's a couple more, but we just mentioned the biggest ones. If you're not in the major market, it's going to ask you, hey, which country you're in, and it's almost every country is listed there. And then right after you choose the country, which is your preferred language. So you can do it in English, Spanish, Italian. There's different options. So we're going to do it in English for this particular example, but just be aware that you can have QuickBooks running in a different language other than English. Now, for multi-currency, really important, multi-currency only works in this Essentials and Plus edition. You are going to have to pick your home currency. So whatever home currency you want the reporting to be, most of the times is the home currency of the country where that business resides. And once you turn on multi-currency, QuickBooks will automatically convert all of that stuff for you. Now let's jump onto QuickBooks Online. Let's do a demo and let's walk you through all these things that it can do. So immediately when you log into QuickBooks Online, what you are going to see is you're going to see the QuickBooks logo on the top left, and you're going to see a big new button. So if you want to find or you want to create a new transaction or find out what QuickBooks can do in terms of transaction types, you just click on that button, and then you're going to see all the different options that you have. So every single line you see in there is a type of transaction that QuickBooks Online can create. So that's going to be what our new button is for. Now that's inside the left navigation bar that could be collapsed simply by clicking on that three-line icon to the left of your company name. You can collapse it. It gives you a lot more real estate, or you can expand it if you want to explore what's in there. And most of your navigation, going to different places in QuickBooks, will happen in a left navigation bar. Now to the right, there's also a gear menu or a cog, and if you click on that, you go through all the different settings in QuickBooks Online. So anything you change here will be something that affects the company wide, or it affects any type of transaction. So it's a little bit different than the new button. If I click on account and settings, that's going to take me to all the preferences. Here I can upload the logo, change the company name, address, tax ID, that sort of thing. If I go down to advanced, you notice that I have the ability to turn on and off certain features. For example, if I wanted to switch the language from English to something else, I can do it here, even if I change my mind from the original setup that we had. And then down here where it says home currency, this is where I get to pick which is a home currency for this company file. And also I can turn on multi-currency if I wanted to. I'll leave it off for the time being, but this is where you would do that. And you can also turn on other features like classes or locations, which are those additional dimensions I talked about. I'm going to leave those on. And you can also turn on account numbers if you want to use account numbers in your chart of accounts. I'm going to click on done, and then we're going to get to that stuff a little bit later, but that's just a general sense of where everything is in QuickBooks Online. Now, generally, in order for you to feel familiar with an accounting system that you haven't used before, the idea is to have information that you're familiar with, have your customer list, your vendor list, your item list, the products and services that you sell. So let's start by just importing a couple of things that I happen to have already saved in a spreadsheet. I'm going to import my customers and my suppliers. So I'm going to click on the gear menu on the top right, click on that, and then I'm going to click on import data. Now you will notice when I click on import data, you have a whole bunch of different things you can import. You can import from a spreadsheet information that you downloaded from the bank. Now, in some cases, you can connect the bank directly and download those transactions sort of seamlessly. But if your bank doesn't support QuickBooks connectivity, you could just download a CSV, a spreadsheet, and upload it through here, which is great. So you can upload your customers, your suppliers, you can upload a chart of accounts, you can upload a list of products and services, you can upload invoices, very useful to upload open invoices when creating QuickBooks Online for the first time, and you can upload bills, again, also very useful when uploading bills from suppliers, amounts that you owe to suppliers prior to setting up your books, so you can have all those beginning balances available. So I'm going to go ahead and click on customers, click on that, and then it tells you download sample files. So if you want to download a sample file, see what that looks like, you can do that. I've already configured my Excel spreadsheet to be import ready. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and I'm going to select customers and click on open. So let's say just this is a spreadsheet that I have that contains the list of all the customers I want to import. Now it's already been mapped, so I don't have to touch anything else. I'm just going to click on next, and then you get a quick preview of all the company names or customer names, addresses that I'm going to import. Then I click on import, and then that imports all 20 customers that happen to be in that spreadsheet. I can do the same thing with suppliers. I'll go ahead and click on suppliers, go to browse, open up a supplier spreadsheet that I happen to have. I'm going to open it really quick just so you can see what that looks like. So this is exactly what it looks like. It's basically a spreadsheet with names and addresses, but that's what the file essentially is. And once you have that all ready, you click on next, and then click on next, and that's going to import the vendor list as well. So I had 20 customers to import and several vendor customers to import. It will avoid any duplicates. So if there's any potential duplicates in there, it will stop the duplicates from happening. So some of them have been imported or they're already in the database. So we can just X out of that and click yes, and that would be it. Now, if I go to my list of customers and list of vendors, I should now see them in there. So I'm going to click on here where it says customers. Actually, I'm going to go to get paid and pay, click on that. And then I'm going to click on customers, and that's going to give me my list of customers. So these are the ones that I just imported. My entire customer list, or the customers that I think I'll be doing business with, are in there. If I click on suppliers, I'm also going to see the list of vendors, all the vendors that I'm going to be doing business with. And prior to this, to the webinar, to the conference, I went ahead and I uploaded a list of products as well. So you can kind of see when we start creating the transactions, you see those products right there, ready to be selected to be invoiced. So that's pretty much importing transactions. I mean, importing customers and suppliers in a nutshell. Obviously, feel free to dig into the different options and import every single piece of data you already have to make you feel more familiar with the system. The next natural thing to do is to configure your forms. So I'm going to click on the gear menu and then click on custom form style. And there's always going to be default forms that come in with QuickBooks when you first set it up. I like to just start by creating a new style. So when I click on up here, it says new style, and I can customize my invoices, my estimates, and my sales receipts. I'm just going to start with invoice, start easy. And then you immediately see a preview here on the right side of what that invoice is going to look like. Now I can name that template, and I can call it template 1 or something like that. And then I can start going into the details and changing things. So for example, let's say I wanted to add a logo. So I click here, it says show logo, and it adds it right there. I can pick and choose if I want a small version, large version, or if I want it placed somewhere else in my invoice. Now I can also change the general colors. So if I want to make this mostly green or mostly gray or mostly aqua or purple or black, whatever, I can do all that here on the fly. I can also change the font size and change the type of font. Not that many options there, but enough to give me some sense of, uh, of customization. Then I can click on content and I can dig deep specifically in which fields I want to see. So if I want to show item description or not, or if I want to show category or not, if I want to show rate and quantity in the description or not. So I get to choose how I want that information to be displayed, and I can also change the order or the or the place that they're in. So if I want to see a description after a certain area, I can click and drag those and change the order of that. So you have complete control over that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on done, and I'm done configuring my invoice in this case. So again, you can choose multiple templates, you can create multiple templates, and then when you go create the transaction, you will have the ability to choose which template you want to apply to that particular transaction. So we can do that when we do the example of the invoice. So that should be good enough. Now let's move on to creating and emailing an invoice. So I'm going to click on the new button on the left side of the screen, and then I'm going to click on invoice. Now, it's also important to mention that you could start with an estimate and then send the estimate to your customer. The customer can approve the estimate, and then you can convert that estimate to an invoice. That is an option as well. The other thing I like to mention is there is something called a sales receipt, and a sales receipt is an invoice that's being paid immediately. But in business, the most common thing is we invoice our customer and they pay us later. So for that, you would do an actual invoice and not a sales receipt. So I'm going to go ahead and click on invoice, and that opens up the invoice window. Now, the first thing you will notice is a drop-down menu for my customer. So I already had imported my list of customers, so I can simply just pick the customer that I want to sell to for this invoice. So I'll pick that customer, and all the information like address, terms, all that stuff will come in automatically. Okay, I can pick the invoice date. Okay, so let's say I want to invoice this for Tuesday, the 28th, and the due date moves automatically with the terms. So if I pick 15-day terms, my due date calculates based on 15-day terms. If I pick 60-day terms, it calculates again, taking the due date plus those terms. And you can create your own terms. So let's say, for example, I have special terms that are 45 days. I just type 45 days and say, okay, this is a 45-day term. Click on save, and then I can use that and then allow QuickBooks Online to calculate that due date. Now, the invoice number can be modified. We generally recommend to just change it once and then just kind of let it roll. But if you want to start the invoice number not in 1001, some people want to start in maybe some much higher number, so it just kind of feels like we've been already in motion, that we didn't just get started. We can do that, and then on the next one we'll naturally pick up and just add one to that. So it's really up to you. You could start with 101. That's okay as well. We mentioned earlier that you can track things by multiple dimensions. That would be in the plus edition. So that's also an option there. We're going to skip it for this example, but that's what that class means and what the location means. Now I'm going to proceed to sell this customer multiple items. So I'm going to click where it says products and services, and then I'll click on the drop-down menu, and I pick whatever product I'm selling this customer. So let's say we have here organic brown rice. We select that. There's a description kind of letting you know what exactly is happening there. Under quantity, when you click on quantity, it gives you a preview of how many you have on hand, so you don't sell more than you're supposed to. So let's say this particular customer is going to get 25 units, and the rate is the default rate that we've configured. But if you've negotiated a different price with your customer, you can change that. That's great. So I'm going to do 16.75, and that will recalculate that total. Now we're going to sell this customer one more product. So we'll click on the drop-down menu, and we'll pick here some frozen mixed berries. And let's say that we have 460 of these. So this customer asked for 120. And let's say the rate here is 38.50. So again, you can leave the default price in there, or you can change it based on what you're trying to achieve. Now you're going to see that in Jamaican dollars, that is 5,038.75. You can confirm that prior to doing anything else, and then at that point you can click on save and send. Now I don't have an email set up for this customer, so it's not going to show, but when I click on save and send, it just tells me, hey, you forgot to put the customer's email. So I'll just put here an email. So I'm just going to create an email here at random, and then click on save and send. And you will notice that the next screen, it gives you a preview saying, hey, this is what the email is going to look like. And you can actually change some of the wording that happens in here. In the settings, you can change the default templates for these emails, but you get to see what it looks like in email format. So this is basically a reconfigured format to fit into an email, which could be mobile ready, or it could be on a regular computer as well. And again, all these texts, the body, the subject, all that stuff can be changed based on your configuration. You can also connect your Gmail address if you want the send from an email to show from your email and not from QuickBooks. So you have the option to connect your Gmail account to that. So so the from doesn't say QuickBooks at notification.intuit.com. So you can change that if you want to, if only works with Gmail, but it's really, really cool. And at this point, you can also print. So if you want to kind of see what the invoice looks like in a PDF or print it, you see it right there on the screen. So it's a great thing. So I'm going to go ahead and click on save, send, and close, and that successfully sends that email to my customer. So my customer is going to get an email with exactly the information that you saw in that preview. Now let's do that one more time. I'm going to go to new. I'm going to go a little bit faster. So we're going to go to new invoice, and I'll select a different customer here. It doesn't have an email. I'm going to pick a different product. Let's do this cheddar cheese, and let's say we're going to sell them, let's say 45 of them. So all of our stock, so 45, all of our stock, and we're not going to change the price. And instead of doing save and send, I'm going to click on the little drop down menu next to it, and we can either do save and close or save and share via WhatsApp. So if you do business via WhatsApp, you can do this, and then it will give you a process, so you can put the person's email and it will actually send it through WhatsApp, which is really, really cool as well. So I'm gonna choose save and close in this particular case, and now we have two invoices that we have created. So now just kind of keep in mind we've made two sales. So when we run the reports, we're expecting to see those two invoices accumulating to our total sales. Perfect. So let's move on to tracking expenses. So there's a couple of expenses you can track. One would be an expense that you're paying immediately, and another one could be an expense that you are going to pay later in the future. So let's start by creating an expense that we're going to make immediately. So I'm going to go to new, then I'm going to click on expense, and then I can get to choose which bank account I am paying from. So in this particular case, let's say this is my petty cash account. I'm paying this with cash. But if you happen to have multiple bank accounts configured here or credit cards, you can choose the source of payment. So the most typical thing is to pay from a bank or from a credit card. So under payee, I'm going to pick the vendor that I'm going to buy whatever is that I'm going to buy from them. I'm going to pick that vendor there. And then under category, I'll pick the expense category or the chart of accounts category for that expenditure. So let's say, for example, in this particular case, I'm going to send this straight to cost of sales. Or let's say in this case, it's going to be, make it a little bit easier. Let's just say freight and delivery. So in this particular vendor, I'm only paying them for freight and delivery, and I'm going to put here 2,500. And the reason why I didn't do cost to sales, because I'll do a separate example for purchasing inventory, which is a slightly different workflow. But this is just an expenditure that I'm paying in cash. I'm paying $2,500 from my petty cash account, and this is for freight and delivery. And then I'm going to click on save and close. So now we have one expenditure that we actually paid in cash in the books. Now let's create a different expenditure, but this is for buying inventory. So I'm going to go to new, and I'm going to go to expense. So the same thing, we're going to use the expense workflow. I'll pick a different vendor here. And let's say instead of using the category section, I'm going to collapse that and then use the item details section. Because if you're buying inventory, you want to specify the specific items that you will be using. So we click on the drop-down menu here and pick this all-purpose flour, and let's buy, let's say, 10,000 of these units, and that cost me 48,000 Jamaican dollars, and that's okay. So, and up here, just make sure you pick the right account that you're buying from. Notice that this account, it's already a negative balance because we haven't loaded any balance in there, which we'll do pretty briefly. So we're going to go ahead and click on save and close. So that's two types of expenditures that you can make. I'm going to make another type of expenditure, which is the one that doesn't affect my bank, which is through a bill. That's accounts payable. So I'm going to click on new. Then I'm going to click on bill. That's to create a bill. And notice it doesn't ask me which bank account I'm paying from because it doesn't matter because I'm not paying yet. I'm just creating that accounts payable. So I click on the drop down menu, pick Caribbean crops, for example. And let's say I'm also going to buy some inventory from these people. So let's say we're going to buy some canned tomatoes and they're giving me net 30 days. So this time I'm making sure that I'm selecting the due date correctly because that's going to be very important for management. And let's say we're going to order 100 of these units at $6 each for $600 in total. Now, again, we're not paying this yet. That's going to be paid in the future. And then where it says bill number, I can simply just put the invoice number from my customer. And what's also really nice is if my sorry, from my supplier. So if my supplier sends me a bill, I can just come down here which is attachments. I can click on drag, or I can click there, or drag and drop, and I can upload an actual bill, a PDF, an Excel, maybe a semi printout of an email, whatever. I can do it, and that can be an attachment to the transactions. That's really powerful. QuickBooks Online doubles as a document management system as well because you can attach documents to the transactions. So we're going to go ahead and click on save and close. So now you saw how we entered invoices, and you saw how we entered expenses, and we saw how we entered bills. Now, one of the other common ways to entering transactions like that is to go straight into the bank register or straight into the check register. So we're going to click on the gear menu, and then we're going to click on chart of accounts. And we only have one account in this chart of account that we're using, for all these transactions, which is this cash account. Again, let's assume that's my petty cash account. And I can click on this little drop down menu, and I can actually, uh, hmm. And I can click right here where it says account history, and that takes me to the register. So once I see the list of transactions in there, I can see all the things I've already entered. Now I can also create transactions from the screen. Simply by clicking here, it says add. I can click on the drop down menu and I can add a check or an expense, same way we were doing it. So I can click on expense and I can add an expenditure in there. So I'm going to pick my payee or my vendor, and I'm going to pick the category. In this case, I'm going to use freight and delivery again. And I'm just going to put that we paid them 950 Jamaican dollars, and then I can click on save. So you can create the expenditures in here as well, or you can edit or view them while you're in the screen. Nice thing about this screen is you can also enter transactions like deposits. So let's say, for example, I happen to put a deposit for, let's say, the capital of the business from the owner, and this happened, let's say, at the very beginning of the year. So I'm gonna come here with this account, and I'm gonna look for an equity account, which is usually where you put owner's contribution, and then we'll put here, let's say we have a category for this. Okay, we'll create a category, and this is, you can create your categories on the fly. So I'm going to go to add new, and then I'm going to pick owner's equity, and then I'm going to pick the category for paid in capital or surplus. So this is when the owner is putting money into the business. I'm going to click on save and close, and let's say the owner is putting, let's say, 55,000. That's going to put our account back in positive. We'll put in the memo here, Hector's We'll put Hector's personal cash or whatever it happens to be, then click on save. And I put the wrong direction. In this case, I put it under payments. That was my mistake. So let me just delete that really quick, hit yes, and do this again and make this a deposit. Try that again. And then we're going to put, what was it? We had an account called capital contribution or surplus. There we go. And then we're going to put here Hector's cash one more time. Okay, and then I'm gonna move on to the deposit section and put the $55,000 there. So that's really important when you're using the register. And of course, you notice how I made the mistake on the fly, is that you gotta put it on the right side. That's gonna be a debit or a credit. In this case, it just says payments and deposits, which is debits and credits in this guise. So I'm gonna click on save, and now that brings our account back to positive because I recorded some money that went into the account prior to all these expenditures happening. Now, if you receive a payment from a customer from an invoice, you should also see it in here. So we're going to stay on this screen. I'm not going to record the payment on the screen. I'm just going to stay on the screen so we can see it. And then I'm going to click on the new button, and then I'm going to click on receive payment. So essentially, I'm going to receive a payment for the previous invoice I created. I'm going to click on the drop-down menu and select the customer that I invoiced. Now I have to remember which customer I had invoiced. So I'm going to X out here for a second, and I'm going to click on the search screen. That's basically going to show you all your recent transactions. So this is, let's say, Negril Adventure Tour. So I just wanted to quickly remember what that was because I don't remember which one I had chosen. So we're going to click on new, and then we're going to go to receive payment. And then we're going to pick Negril. So let's go down here to that customer. So there you go, Negril. And then when it comes time to receiving a payment, it will give you a list of all those outstanding invoices. So I can click on the little checkbox next to it, and I could essentially receive payments from multiple invoices in a single payment. Then I can, on the payment method, I can say, oh, they pay me in cash. And then I choose the bank account where the payment is going into. And then I click on save and close. So now when we do that, notice that my balance went up because now I'm adding money into my bank or my bank register. So those are all the features that really highlight what QuickBooks Online is in a nutshell in terms of transactions. Now let's take a look at the report so we have an understanding as to everything what we did and how that pertains to reports. So I'm going to click on Business Overview. And then I'm going to click on reports, and that's going to take me to my reports section. So I'll be able to see all sorts of reports. Now I'm going to start with the simplest of reports, the report that every business tracks, which is the profit and loss. That contains your sales and your expenses. So I'm going to click on profit and loss, and that's going to show me all of the sales and expenses I have made. Now I can expand the date range. So I can do, let's say, this year, and click on run report, and that's going to show me all the transactions I have created. One really cool thing about the QuickBooks Online reporting system is you could also quickly do or configure the reports so you can see them by month, for example. So I'm just going to pick the beginning of the year all the way to the end of February, which is going to give me 2 months, and then go to total by and click on months, and then click on run report. And now I'm able to see the transactions as grouped by that month. So if I happen to have one of those expenditures or one of those invoices dated in January, you would see them across the multiple months. Since you can't see them now, we're going to go ahead and do that so you can get to enjoy it in this report. So I'm going to click on the total dollar amount of sales of product income. So you see multiple invoices in here. I'm going to grab one of these invoices. I'm just going to simply just backdate it to January, and then click on save and close, because in that way we're going to be able to go back into that report that we were looking at earlier, and we get to see January and February with different sales. So that should give you a general idea how you can leverage this system to instantly give you the reports that you want. So that profit and loss is one of the most common reports. Down here in the bottom, the total, that would be your profitability. That's ultimately what you want to track. And the other type of report that we get to see quite often is the balance sheet. So I'm going to go into balance sheet here. and that's going to open the balance sheet. That lets me know everything that's happening. So how much I have in accounts receivable. These are the invoices that have not been paid. How much I have in my cash or cash equivalent. How much I have in my inventory. And these balance sheets can be created as of any date. So if there's any transactions in the past or in the future that you want to change how the report calculates it, you can certainly do that, and you could get a different result, of course, based on the date range that you use for the reports. Okay, so we have accounts payable. That's the bill that we entered that we haven't paid, and this is all the sort of net activities of the business. The other reports, if you want to get your accounting nerd on, would be your the trial balance. We can use the search feature here on the top to find a particular report. We can click on trial balance, and that's going to take me into my trial balance that shows everything as a function of debits and credits. So if you're an accountant and you wanted to just double check to make sure everything you did made sense from an accounting perspective, this is exactly where you would do it by running a trial balance. Now, I opened QuickBooks in my mobile device. I'm going to walk you through all the different options that you have. And this is really exciting that you can both use your desktop browser and your uh, mobile device to use QuickBooks. So I'm using it on a smartphone, and you can create new transactions straight from your smartphone. So I'm going to click on Invoice, and then from here I get to pick the customer. So this is my same customer database that you saw earlier while I was in the desktop, and I had imported that. So I'm going to click on a customer there, and I can assign the invoice number if I want to, as we spoke earlier, or we can just let it be so QuickBooks can create its own. So the next thing we can do is we can now start picking the products that we want to sell. So we're going to click on Add Product and Service, a button that's right there. And then we get to pick from our entire list of products. I can pick what we're going to sell. So I'm going to select some fresh pineapple. And then from here, I'm going to pick the quantity. So let's say we're going to sell 50 of these units, and then we can change anything on the description or change anything else in the configuration. Click on Add, and then we can click again on Add Product and Service, and then let's say some virgin olive oil, and let's say we're going to sell 2 of these, and we're going to modify the price to, we're going to go up this time to 45. Okay, so again, you can move the price up and down as you wish. There's no restriction in terms of how you set up those prices. And we'll click on Add, and there we go. That's our invoice. That's our invoice for 1340. So you can add a message to the customer. You can add a message on the statement, and this is additional information that you're going to be able to see in reports and that sort of thing later on. Then we click on Save, and that's it. That creates that invoice. Invoice is created. Okay, so from here I can now preview and send it. Now in the next screen, I can preview and send it. It gives me a quick preview of everything that's going on. You get to see a little map that shows you where in this sequence it is, whether you send the invoice, the customer, whether the customer is seeing it, whether it's been marked paid, and finally deposit into the bank. So you can follow that entire sequence, and you can see all the information from here. Now, the other cool thing is, because you are in a mobile device, it is likely that you maybe are selling things right there in front of the customer, and you want to capture signature right there in the bottom, just to make sure that you have, you know, a better record that that customer is actually buying that from you. So at this point, I could just collect a signature by just clicking on Get Signature, and then we can get the signature from the customer, and then we can click on Done, and now I have a permanent signature of that invoice, basically getting acknowledgement from that customer. I can click on Preview and Send so that I can see what the invoice is going to look like. So it's going to generate a preview that I can see right there on the screen, and then I can click on Email, and I would email it to the customer. Same thing, if I don't have an email address collected, I need to have one. Okay, so I put my customer's email address, click on done, and then click on send, and that's going to send that invoice to the customer, and it will mark it sent. So you can do all that stuff right here from the mobile device. So it's extremely powerful. We're going to click back on that, and then we're actually going to look at transactions that we already created. So I'm going to click on the menu button here in the bottom, and then I have shortcuts, and then I have all. So depending on how you want to go through it, shortcuts is pretty much the easiest way to do things. So if I click on transactions, that's going to give me a list of all the transactions that were connected with the bank, which we haven't shown you and we won't show you on this session. We will save that for more advanced sessions, but I can also click on invoices, and I get to see the list of all my invoices, and I get to see which ones have been paid and which ones have not been paid. So if you notice that the one for 5,038.75, that's been paid and deposited, and then the other two in the top, one is overdue and the other one is open. So if I want to also record a payment from the mobile device, I can do that. I can simply just click on the transaction, and I can click where it says payment. There's a payment button and a plus button. I click on the little plus next to payment, and then I get to pick or enter all the information of how they paid me. So I get to put that information in there, and then click on save, and essentially that now records that payment. Okay, and then I can get a signature also if I wanted to. So if I want to get a signature on that payment, I can do that. So that's also available in that payment section, and now that marks that invoice paid. When I go back into my list of transactions, notice that only the one in the top shows that is open, and the two bottom in the bottom show paid. I can also enter transactions from here, so I can click on the new, and I'm going to create, actually instead of an invoice, I'm going to create an expense transaction. So I'm going to go back into shortcuts, and then I'm going to click on expenses, and there's already expenses in there, and then I'm going to click on the new button so I can create a new one. Click on new, and then I get to put the dollar amount here. So let's say I spent $56, and then I went to this specific vendor, so I get to choose the vendor that I did. Then the expense category, so what account did I use in this case? Actually, we'll leave that. I'm going to click on leave here for a second just to avoid any confusion. I'm going to go back into my expense here, and let's say I paid with other, and then I'm going to click on the account, and then I'm going to click my bank account. That's what I'm going to choose there. Is the account that I'm paying from. Then who I paid, let's say I paid Tropical Harvest, and then here's this type of expense. Here's where I put the category. So let's say I pay them for some, let's say, um, office expenses. I reimburse them for office expenses, whatever it happens to be. And then here on the description, I can put reimbursement for document shipment or something like that. Okay, so I put whatever note I want, click on done. Okay, I can split it if I want to hit multiple accounts. No need to do that. And then I can click on save. So that creates the expenditure right there and then. And if I want to take a picture of a receipt, I can. So I don't have a receipt with me, but I'll just show you really quick. I'm going to click on the little clip and then click on photo. And then just imagine that this little orange paper that you see here is a receipt. I can take a picture of that and then click on use photo. And essentially that becomes the receipt attachment to that expense transaction. That's probably going to be the most common use case of people using a mobile device, is they're going to be recording expenses and also taking pictures on the fly, because that really is the power behind that. And lastly, we'll show you some reports. So right here from the phone app, I can run P&L and balance sheet. So I'll click on profit and loss, and I get to see exactly uh, a quick graph on that, and then I can go to view report, and I can choose the date range that I want. So let's say I want this year, and I get to see a quick profit and loss, right? With my net income, with my profit all the way in the bottom. I can do the same thing with the balance sheet, and I can also just use the mobile device to have to add attachments. So I can just add attachments. So I'll add another attachment here. I'll take a picture here of this water bottle. So again, let's imagine that's an invoice. Let's imagine that's a receipt, a sort of thing. and then we can add that. So it could also be a repository of documents, and I can pick the particular customer that it belongs to, and then later on I can sort out and attach those to real transactions. For now, this could just be a simple repository of all your different uh, uh, pictures that you took of receipts and those sort of things. So I hope that tutorial convinced you that cloud accounting is the future, is the way to go. That QuickBooks Online International Edition is super powerful. You can use it from a computer, you can use it from a smartphone, you can do tons of things. And I really, really hope that convinced you that that is the way to go. Thank you very much for attending, and I'll see you on the next one.